One of them wanted to be the security guy. He claimed he was a security guy.
Welcome to Security Guy Radio. What's your name, sir?
Vic Guy.
What's the name of your company?
QuantumSecure.
I guessed that by the nice sign back there, QuantumSecure.
Oh, yeah.
What do you guys do?
Well, we do a lot of things. We help automate physical security operations.
Okay.
So what that really means is a lot of the security systems today, as well as security departments are feeling this pinch of doing a lot of data entry across multiple systems to do things like, simple things like onboarding, offboarding, badging, giving access, removing access, doing compliance reports. What we really are into is providing a policy engine that automates most of the security functions. The security folks can actually work on real security incidents, and we can take up a lot of the data entry, as well as provide a central user interface where everything can be done from.
Now, integration is the key.
Yeah.
Right? And HIT has been known for integration for a long time.
Right.
Because your cards, when I worked at Fox and Disney, your cards would work on our systems. Except you bought one of those, somebody had a proprietary system where it wouldn't work. But I always thought that was a good idea. So you guys have been into this for a long time. Are you fine? You belong to ONVIF, by the way?
Yeah, so we started this in 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you work with other manufacturers to integrate this stuff, make graphical user interfaces. Talk
Exactly.
about how the migration and the data works that's unique with this part of your business.
I think you mentioned a good point. Just like HID, their business is very vendor agnostic. I think their cards work on just about every system in the world.
Right.
Right. And they have multi-tech readers and multi-tech cards and all that. So we basically an overlay system that works with all brands of different access control systems, all brands of different HR system out there, IT systems out there. And really the goal is to automate as many operations based on the data.
Okay.
So integration is the key. Integration is sort of the means to the end. The end is really automation. Integration is the key to make sure all of that automation works together.
Now the automation, are we talking about writing queries that say, tell me if something happens, I want that data. I want to know if some guy comes into work at 3 in the morning when he's not supposed to come to work at 3 in the morning. Is that the automation part?
Yeah, so that's one part of the automation. The goal is to write exactly like you said, if this happens, then do that, in a very simplistic way, right? And if this and this and this happens, then go ahead and maybe turn somebody's badge off. So for example, if we have somebody show up 3 a.m. in the morning, no big deal. But if we have what we call indicators of compromise, if we have other known things about them, as in they came 3 a.m. in the morning, but they also printed a very restricted document, 400 pages of that.
Right.
Well, that triggers the alarm to say, okay, well that does not happen very often at 3 a.m. in the morning. People printing restricted documents, so there's something going on. And also, if the person, what we look for is, what are the other anomalistic things around not only physical security, but also in the IT landscape? Maybe how they are logging into their systems, how often they're trying to go onto internal networks where they don't have access to, just like people trying to shop their badges on different doors.
Exactly, it happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And what we're looking at is we look for these patterns, we store them, and then, like you said, 3 a.m. if something happens, so they're already on a high risk profile, but they also try to print a whole large of data set, restricted documents, then we could trigger an alarm, let the supervisor know, or ask the person, are you the one who's doing this at 4 a.m. in the morning?
Now, is this a new trend, the automation?
Yeah, I think the automation's been around for a very long time.
But what you're doing is real specific.
Yeah.
We did this at the studios. I dumped data from my phone switch. I'd write a query and say, tell me everybody that made phone calls at 3 in the morning, and I go, what are you doing here at 3 in the morning?
Right.
Because we didn't have the access control piece back then, right?
Right.
So my challenge was always, the data's always been here, but it just sits there. And this sounds really fascinating that you're able to automate it to say, you know what, I'm going to get a phone call as the chief security officer at 3 in the morning because I want to know about this thing right here.
That's correct.
And the other ones, I'm going to delegate that down to a guard of my manager to handle. But something at a serious level, it has to be automated.
I think that you bring a good point that there is the automation piece, but there is also what data should go to whom, as in terms of whether it's CSO. Does the CSO really want to know that I tried my badge 4 times in a cafeteria? No. In that case, we actually tell the person that, are you trying to get into a cafeteria area, here's the request, the link to automatically get access there.
Right.
Because it's a general automation thing. The key here, I think one of the other point you mentioned is security has some very knowledgeable data that generally stays within security. It doesn't go outside security.
That's a great point. It doesn't go to HR, it doesn't go to the finance people, right.
Yeah, so one of the things, for example, we generate, we'll show you a demo here. We have a report for the CFO. Now CFO generally is interested in larger budgets and things. One of the biggest budgets they manage is facilities.
Right.
The cost of renting or leasing or owning a facility. So one of the CFO metrics is, well, how occupied we are. Are we 60% occupied? Are we 80% occupied? Are we 20% occupied? Well, the security department is the only department who actually knows how many people come to the building and how often.
That's true.
We've taken that data, massaged it in a way that's very relevant for CFO in terms of how many people we think. For example, we are building here, a real customer example, they have 600 people in San Francisco area. Well, the building is for 1,000 people. But so that's 60% occupied, CFO is feeling good about it. But when the security data comes in, it says the headcount occupancy and actual usage of the building is a lot lower. Now that meant unique number of times somebody actually came to that office once every month.
Right, yeah.
And that data is only with security. That data, then we leverage that and show to the CFO that actually it's really 40% used, occupied 60%.
Right.
And both of these metrics are saying, hey, we're not leasing any more space because we have about 60% unused space, even though it's occupied, but it's not being used.
That's brilliant. Because, and the security company, the security managers, that's not their bailiwick. That's not what they're focusing on.
But that's where the budget comes from.
That's right. That's right. The budget comes to that guy. So you want to make that guy happy, so it gives him more money. Although my trend was, if I saved money, that's great. They gave me less last year and thought I was a genius. So you got to spend it, unfortunately, sometimes.
Yeah,
but
every company is in the post-2008, 2009 timeframe, every company is looking for making some very valuable investment.
Yeah.
Investment that either raise revenue or cut costs. So if there's a security department that's saying, I just need so many more man guarding hours, I need so many more CCTV hours, if you ask most CFO, they actually don't care about it anymore. They say, unless there is a specific threat risk, I really can't continue to sustain that kind of budget.
That's true, yeah.
Because my board's telling me, my investment in new products telling me that I need to cut down operations budget. So security is going to get impacted just like all the other departments. So the way to show them how security has the unique data like you talked about, nobody else has it, and it does not need to stay within security. We've also seen this same data actually not just being used by finance, but also we have a visitor management system. We're able to uniquely track how often customers actually come to visit the customer sites.
oh, that's interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So the customer in our case have 400 sites around the world. How often? So they have a CRM system, because customer relationship management system.
But that's complicated.
Yeah.
The CRM, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's all gone to integration, right?
Right.
What typically they're tracking is how often people are clicking on a website and so forth. That's great. But how often they're actually meeting
That's the key.
in your office.
Because you can't close the deal unless you meet them.
Exactly.
That's why we're at a trade show.
And-
Because that's how it works.
And,
Yeah.
and our goal is we're taking the detailed, very unique data from visitor management and helping those account teams to see that they may be doing a business with, let's say, a Korean company in Malaysia, while at the same time they're trying to chase that Korean company in the United States for selling certain kind of IT products or memory products or what have you. But they realize, no, like all the data points where the company is visiting other teams that we're not involved with. Companies get very, very large. They're only looking at their department. But if they look at all of the departments, very hard to get that. So visitor management, again, security has the data, who is in our buildings. So we try to take that data not only to alert people to say, okay, here's a risk indicator, but also to say, here are different business areas where the data can be used.
When I was at Fox back in the 90s,
Yeah, interesting background.
Fox, Disney, I've done a lot of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love databases, and we use Microsoft Access. And the finance guy cuts me and says, I'm cutting your budget. And I said, why? Because nothing happens around here. So what did I do? I pulled the phone switch, 450,000 phone calls a year.
Wow.
My little department. 20,000 were my guy. But I had to justify the budget, and I said, you know what you could save me on? Is door openings. So I did the analysis you're talking about, and I found out that every time a guard opened up a door, it cost the company $125. And guess what? A policy came out from the big shot that said, you're not getting your door opened by security. If you forget your keys, go home. And that stopped right away. So now I was able to look at crime trends instead of opening doors and being a concierge, right?
Right.
So this is amazing data And how you look at it and how you analyze and how you crunch it is so important. And frankly, I'm glad to see this is happening, because 5-6 years ago, people were saying, nah, who needs to know that stuff, right? So I'm happy this is
coming. I think in a way, in a way, some sort of budget restriction creates more innovation, right?
That's
if
right.
everything was working the same way, we wouldn't really go out and look for new solution, new thing. But like you mentioned, this simple example, so I was talking to a Silicon Valley company who said, how many times a CFO has been late to a meeting, or CIO has been late to a meeting with the board because they forgot their badge or they didn't have the right access on their card. Right. It's a big deal for the security department.
Oh, you don't slow those guys down.
So, but they also looked at how many employees, on average, are losing or forgetting their badge. And they said, it happens two times in a day or what have you. But we came up with a very innovative solution for them. We said, they're going to forget the badge, you can send them home. It's all about employee productivity. How much hours they have wasted, especially if it's a contractor. So, not to make things very easy for them to forgetful, but we're helping them use their phone.
Brilliant.
For the day they have forgotten their badge.
Just a day.
You can only do it, you can't lose it more than 3 times in a month.
Now why don't we use it all the time?
But that's great, right? So that's exactly where the industry is heading, is starting to use phone as a phone factor, right? We forget a badge, never forget a phone.
Never forget the phone, right.
Right. And then as that starts to improve, some sort of employee productivity, they say, not only I can use it on a forgetful day, I can use it every day.
Yeah.
Right? But we're still kind of going through this phase where it's going to take a generation to say, I can use phone for everything, including my token. Well, people still want to see a badge.
Yeah, that's functionality. How would you price it? I think if you're charging $10 for a hit card, I charge you $10 per phone. Same thing.
Something very similar.
And you make more money because you don't have to make the card.
I wish HID would love that $10 figure though.
I'd pay it. You know what? You know why I'd pay it? Because I'm paying it now. Plus, I got to make the badges. I got to put a guy on labor to make the badges. I got to do all that crap.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm going to pay 10 and have no labor. I'm saving money paying you 10 for a phone.
Exactly. Right. And more importantly, today, that phone, the token on the phone, can also be used for logical access, just like how card can be used for logical access.
Right.
So we're seeing that already happen. We're seeing more and more that people are going to end up having 2 tokens, one on their phone for both physical and logical access, and one they're going to have a guard or some sort of a card near the guard, just because, we are culturally wanting to see an ID badge.
Yeah, that's true.
To say it belongs to you and all of that.
Yeah. Now you could also, I would see a trend where you might use a phone and the badge for 2-way authentication.
That's
correct. If you want to be really secure, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have both, you can't get in.
Absolutely. I mean, I think those are the kind of things where security is no longer, and this is one of the things we're talking about, the data in terms of using phone, the tools that people already use for doing a lot of other things. Security, rather than being only a security provider, becoming a service provider.
Yeah.
Just like how accounting is just not counting the expense reports, but they make an expense report to get easily and faster to turn around. Or procurement is becoming more a service-oriented organization. IT, for example, is constantly being asked, not just provide you network and hardware, but service. Security is no different. So security is again changing. I think we see security changing in the next 10 years to be a service-oriented organization, not just a cost center, that actually either help with employee productivity or help with making the customer lives better as they visit these companies, in addition to whatever else they were doing.
Yeah.
That's where they see more value. They get the seat on the table in terms of the management meetings. I was at a customer site, a large customer, global manufacturing company out of New York, and they said, I was discussing the budget of my access control rollout with my CEO.
Yeah.
And after about 10 minutes of presentation, he said, I really don't want to be bothered with these details. That's why the system's going fine. I really don't care.
That's right.
Tell me about the visitor management system you're deploying. I said, why is the CEO interested in the visitor management system? Way more, because he's saying that is the first point of contact a person's going to get when they arrive at the headquarters of the company.
Yeah.
They're not going to see the access control. It's running in the back end. They're not going to use their card at the door. But the visitor management system is going to be first interaction this company, and he wanted to make sure that interaction is so energetic
and seamless.
It's so seamless. Yeah. It's so forward thinking that they want to go back and say, I went to this company's headquarters, and the person automatically had my photo of what I look like when they came out to come look for me. The kiosk had just about every piece of information that I related to my visit already. And I was given a very nice welcome card as a part of this. It's almost like a red carpet treatment.
That's so important.
So the CEO, even the visitor management, is much smaller in terms of the budget, more interested in that. than an access control, because it really does not come into day-to-day in contact with their end user, their customer.
In a normal business, I just interviewed Tyco about access control, right? So most access control is to keep most of the honest people honest, calculated, counted, kept track of, right?
Correct,
A determined intruder doesn't care about your access control system. He'll try to get around it, and he may or may not, right?
Right.
But the first impression of somebody walking in the door to your business, if that guard, that concierge, that greeter is messed up, it's clunky, the process takes too long, it's reflection on the company. They're going to say, really, you want to handle my data and your guy can't even get his ID card right?
That's exactly right.
Kill your sale, absolutely.
They were saying in this case, they're trying to sell this technology that they're building and manufacturing around the world to some very high-tech companies, and they said, when we're talking about all the high-tech, their welcome should be equally high-tech.
That's right. And there's not a connection usually. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So I think these are the kind of things where they don't look at security as just doing security, but security as a way to deliver more services to your customer. I think the other trend, and we're demonstrating some of that over here, is very, very important. That security is everybody's business, kind of like an old adage, right?
Yep.
Security is not just security's business. You can't just secure a 20,000 people organization with 200 man guard, right? That's not, security is a culture. If you're going to secure it, you can't necessarily, you need to augment that with your employee education about security and all of that. So what we're seeing is more and more application that we are developing is keeping that end user in mind. What should they can or cannot do? How do we educate and have the regular employee,
keep engaged,
contractors who are working at the company who think of security while using or requesting things from security? So it's not just the 200 people security department securing them, but it is part of the policy, the education and all of that across all of the company's employee contractor base. And what that does it makes security look a lot different than saying these systems are only made for the guard and the security system that we're designing. We're designing a security system that's made for all of the different people who are stakeholders in that. That includes marketing, finance, IT, regular employees. So our application, our users today, QuantumSecure manages about 150 different large organizations use our software. And about 7 million identities use the system every day. That's not 7 million security users.
Right.
Probably that's 6.5 million day in, day out, people who need something from security department, and about 500,000 security users.
And it's not always security. I used to get calls for, can you hang up my poster board? I mean, crazy stuff, right? You're a service organization.
Exactly.
And if you respond and can't do it, you call somebody. You're still doing it by putting them in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, I've been coming here for 25 years, and I used to be worried every year because I didn't see things catching up. And this year's the first year I see things catching up.
Absolutely.
Security companies, the end users tend to be kind of, kicking and screaming, but there's people like yourself and other companies that are like way ahead of the curve. Now the question is it an easy sell? Because the end users sometimes go, do I really need that right now? So it looks like the tech companies are getting a little ahead of the customer now, where it used to be the other way around.
That's true.
You see it that way?
Absolutely. I mean, I've sat in several meetings, including with somebody, a lot of tech companies in Bay Area who said, I just couldn't find a product like this, so I started building it on my own.
Oh yeah, we used to do that.
So the number one today competitor we have is people who are building it themselves. Just because they couldn't find it out in the market. Or what they found was, the same brand of access control that I put it in the local school district will work for you as well, though you are the most high-tech manufacturing company.
Now, do you write API programs for people, and do you customize software for them, or is yours really plug and play that can be scaled to what they need?
Yeah, so we definitely write a lot of APIs. I would say about 20% of my engineering team, that's all they do is write APIs.
Oh, that's interesting. All right.
They write APIs to different brands of access control, different brands of IT security systems, HR systems, Workday, SAP, PeopleSoft, all of them. Because it's not just about security system, it's all about the rest of what the corporate fabric uses. So in an average company today, they have a different HR system, a different Salesforce type CRM system, they have a different financial system. We want to bring it all together. Now typically, a financial system never needed to connect with a security system.
Yeah, that's true.
But what we have found is companies who have a lot of contractors. Well, how do you know the contracts are still valid? Well, that's where the procurement system comes in. So we integrate with the procurement system to say, if Joe Jones has a welding contract with the company, they can come in any of your part shop. Well, they need to have the welding contract continued on. They need to have a purchase order. So all the Joe Jones contractors or their employees can come on site.
Now back in the day, if I went to a company and said, I want you to write me a graphic user interface, and they go, what do you, oh no, I can't have your system touching my system. That's a no-no, right? Security breach, blah, blah, blah. Is that going away now? Are people cooperating at the API level to integrate this
I think if you bring in the right stakeholders and then also have certified APIs, so for example, a lot of integration we do, whether we're doing it with Tyco, like you mentioned, or UTC Lenel and all of those systems, we are certified. Not only we have an API with them, they test it, they approve it, we go once a year, AMAG, the same thing. The same on the things like SAP and other systems, financial systems, Oracle. They also have certified programs in terms of not just go and start writing a bunch of queries, but very specific APIs like you mentioned. But not only they do that, they also certify that this vendor is qualified in terms of doing that. So that's exactly what I said. 20% of my engineering team is doing just that.
Now,
keeping up with all the different versions that they come up with every year.
So here's what I worry about.
Yeah.
What is the tin can and the wire to fall back on? Because integration's great, but integration's also terrible. Why? Because now if I get in the system, I'm into everything. It's not bifurcated anymore. It's not chopped up into little servers and little silos, it's not separated.
That's right.
And I can get your whole company. I got your SAP, I got your security, I got your access control, I got your cameras, just like in the movies now, right?
That's it.
We're almost in the movies, aren't we? We almost can do that.
Yeah.
If it's all integrated, you can access it. If you're a hacker, you can cause trouble.
Yeah. I think one of the things what we have focused a lot on is policies. For example, we know on an average, exactly like the data you're talking about, on average a company makes 300 changes in their HR system on a given day, and that's how the data flows to it. Well, if we see 5,000 changes come today, our system starts figuring out, is this real, or is it an anomaly?
Oh, because you're automated, of course.
So I think because this is not the kind of data changes we typically see on a day basis. And we have had customers tell us that, sometimes, especially like universities, they tell us up front, hey, we're going to be making a lot of changes in the next week. Our system starts to figure that out. There's a schedule of semester changes and things like that, so a lot of data will be coming through. So there are ways to make that intelligent. I mean, of course, the movie kind of glamorized the hacker and make sure all the security guys don't know what they're doing, all of that. But I think what we need to look at, not only just integrate and automate, do it based on a policy. So it is based on some rules that the system either learns or the system understands that are governing the specific business process, security process of that company. So example would be, for example, we do a lot of integration for airports. So if you have not taken a background check in the next 2 years, the system will flag itself. So once good is not always good. That means we are integrated all the way with the credentialing system that's good. That makes sure that once good is not always good. If somebody hacks into that system and tries to give us a different data, our system automatically knows how often your background check is supposed to come. So if your background check was not good, and suddenly it turned out to be good without us doing any other processing, the transaction is not going to carry through.
You need to go to LAX. You got to talk to them. So I got a TWIC card, I don't know, a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I had some clients that were airlines, small airlines, and I'm talking to them about this kind of thing, and I say, well,
employee get background check and credential in each of the airports. So that's extra money for United and extra money they're spending each airport. They're getting 3 badges, based on what airport they're headed to, LAX or Burbank or SNA, right? Different ones. So when they met us, one of the problems they wanted to solve was, can we be consistent? So one United employee, because United is that airport's customer.
Right.
It's the one who's paying the lease for the airport space. So what can we do from a customer service perspective, not just security, to make United very happy? At the same time, live up with all of the TSA regulation policies that we have. So one of the things was, can we standardize on the set of credentials across 3 airports?
Well, how do you standardize the TWIC card? Because I did some maritime work, right? I was managing maritime accounts. And one company has a TWIC reader, and the guy across the street literally does not have a reader. And so all they do is say, oh, you got a card, go ahead. We don't know if that card's active, we don't know if it's good.
That's where the mobile phones come in.
But so you go back to policy, right? Because the policy for the port from the Coast Guard is, well, if you can't afford it, I'm not going to make you buy one. So I can have a deactivated TWIC card and get into a port that's manual.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah, so it's great that we're trying to do this kind of stuff. Company name one more time.
QuantumSecure.
How do we get hold of you guys? Website?
www.quantumsecure.com and hidglobal.com as well.
Oh, excellent. Your name, sir.
Yeah.
Your name one more time.
Vic guy.
All right, Vic, thanks
All right.
for coming.
Nice talking to you.
It was a great show.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Very good.